Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this afternoon, we are going to look at the mass deportation, that's Trump's mass deportation. And I'm going to advance, as it were, 10 ways in which you can avoid Trump's mass deportation nightmare, right? So I am going to be suggesting to Jamaicans and also other foreign citizens, other foreign nationals, 10 ways in which you can avoid Trump's mass deportation nightmare. Now, the fact is also that if it does happen, I'm also going to proffer some ways in which you can survive, right? Because it's always important for you to have survival strategies, ways in which you are going to survive even though you're going through a storm. Very important that you understand that, because a lot of us now, we have grown up in a society in which we expect that our lives will always be at ease. And we must understand that it is the storms that will teach you how to survive, because we need those survival skills, don't we? Now, I opened the paper this morning and I just want to begin with this. And I ask you to like the video, right? So make sure that you go over now to the video and you like the video. It's very important that you like and share the video, comment on the video, because that is the only way that the video will be shared on platform. We're not living in normal times. We're living in times where information is being suppressed, and certain types of information is being suppressed on all platforms. So you must understand that. So get this out of your heads, that you're living in democratic societies until the storm comes, and everything comes tumbling down upon you. So please go and like and subscribe to the channel. Now, this is an article that was written by El País. And El País is a paper in Spain. Now, when I was a student in Spain at La Universidad Complutense de Madrid, that was the state university in Madrid, at the University of Complutense. I used to read that paper, El País, but it seems that they have a US version now, El País, and the article is entitled "Trump Deported Fewer People Than Obama, Clinton, or Bush, but More Indiscriminately." So Biden is nearing the 1.5 million deportations carried out by his predecessor, but has focused more on returns at the border and the deportation of migrants with criminal convictions. Now, this article was actually written on November 19th, 2024. So shortly after Trump won the election and he was then president-elect, waiting for the termination of the Biden administration. Now, listen to what this writer is saying, and this was written by Patricia Caro, right? So it was written by Patricia Caro. Now, although Donald Trump has positioned himself as the biggest champion for deportations, pledging to oversee the largest deportation operation of migrants in US history, as president, he expelled fewer people than his predecessors. I repeat that. Although Donald Trump has positioned himself as the biggest champion for deportations, pledging to oversee the largest deportation operation of migrants in US history as president, he expelled fewer people than his predecessors. Between 2017 and 2021, his administration conducted 1.5 million deportations, and that was his entire presidency, right? He came into the presidency in 2017 and he demitted office 2021. In comparison, during Barack Obama's presidency, right, the first Black president, and he was King Barack Hussein Obama. During Barack Obama's presidency from 2009 to 2017, there were 5 million deportations. 5 million deportations. So we have to understand that, given that he reigned, from 2009 to 2017 would have been his 2 terms. At that time, Trump only spent 1 term in office from 2017 to 2021, and he deported 1.5 million people. Obama spent 8 years in office, deported 5 million people. So that would be 2.5 million people. Let us say he deported 2.5 million people per term. That would be the equivalent. I'm not sure if that was the case, but in all, he deported, that's factual, deported 5 million people whilst he was in office. While George W. Bush's tenure saw 10 million, and Bill Clinton's administration reached 12 million. Right? So, however, these numbers span 2 presidential terms, while Trump's figure is for a single term. But even though we're saying that Trump's term was just one single term, but he only deported 1.5 million people during his tenure in office, even though he was strident. Even before he came into office in 2017, he was strident that he was going to deport large numbers of people. Now, listen to President Joe Biden has also already matched Trump's deportation figures. According to data from the Department of Homeland Security, that's the DHS, as of September this year, 1.4 million deportations had been recorded, excluding administrative returns, when individuals voluntarily withdraw their asylum implications. So I think that more figures will be collected as soon as, as soon as possible. I think that they will collect the data in terms of how many people were deported by Joseph Biden. But I just say this, I just read this to contextualize that I see people getting out of their minds about Trump and his mass deportation, rampage, not understanding, the history of his predecessors. So I had to really make that clear. And I want you to understand, as many of you are sending me information about Elon Musk and all these billionaires and what they're doing and what they're not doing, and he's an unelected official. And yes, he is an unelected official. Yes, and we have to agree with that. You're certainly right about that. But why weren't you, when Bill Gates was, when he was heading the big C, right? Why weren't you concerned about what he was doing to healthcare? And the fact that he too is a billionaire. Why weren't you? Why aren't you concerned that the same Bill Gates met with Donald Trump and has infused hundreds of thousands of dollars into making vaccines, right? Why weren't you? Or why aren't you concerned about how these unelected officials are so much involved in the presidency and sometimes very secretly, not in the open, right? But everything is on all the sides are on Elon Musk. And I'm not suggesting that you should not be concerned. You should. But I'm suggesting to you that you have to understand that these people have one mind. They have one goal, and that is to establish, to cement, and to strengthen U.S. imperialism on the shore, on the mainland, as well as overseas. But you're not grasping that. You don't even understand that the U.S. is an empire, because you are still living in the what should I say now, maybe in the 19th century, that the United States is still a republic. Many U.S. citizens still believe that the United States is a republic, right? Well, it should have been a republic, but it lost that years ago. And I would argue that after the Civil War, it started losing it, because slavery allowed that sort of system to be partially dismantled. Right? It allowed that because it was the greatest sin that the US could have ever committed. And the blot still reigns supreme there. And it affected the political process and the political system. But you don't want to study the history. You don't want to read the history. All you want to do is to react to what you see on MSNBCs and also on the CNNs. Right? And they're not giving to you the proper perspective. But you fail to read. Oh, Trump doesn't read. But you're not reading too. If you read Revelation 17, the Bible is very strident. It's very clear that all of these people who are creating this new world order and this one world government, they are of one mind, right? One mind. That means they're going to have the same ideology, even though they are dividing the citizens to accept their ideology. But they, in the final analysis, they are working towards an agenda, right? So when we look at the deportation scenario, we see where Donald Trump is not as dictatorial and autocratic as Joe Biden, more so like Barack Hussein Obama's and the George W. Bush and the Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton deported over 12 million people. You learned here from this article, and not only from this article, I've read other articles which confirmed the same statistics, right? So Trump is not as draconic as you think he is. One of the things about him is that he likes power, and give him his credit. He tells you what he's going to do. He's not hiding the face of the US empire. He's telling you that I sit atop of a powerful apparatus and I'm going to brag. The others pretend as if they were diplomatic, and they speak diplomatically and they act hypocritically. But Trump is not a hypocrite. He's telling you what he's going to do. Of course, is he going to be able to do everything? Absolutely not. Because Trump is a man, right? And God is the one who sets up and he puts down. So at his time, he will intervene in whatever. If Trump is passing or crossing the boundary, the line, then God is going to intervene. But it's very sad to see how we have, as individuals, as creatures, as citizens, we have reposed our trust and our confidence in a man that we are scared of, this one man, who's just a normal creature, like you and I. Trump is just a normal creature, just like you and I. He has no particular strength than what the office has given to him and what God sees fit for him to use. And he cannot go beyond the power that God has given to him. Right? But we are now we're losing our minds because of Trump and Elon Musk, and every day in the news, Elon Musk and Trump. And it would have been very good if the left-wing media, which control 2/3 of the US landscape, and I would say the landscape of the world, because everything that comes from the US, the British follow, same thing is reported in the BBC and the Guardian newspaper, and most of the dailies in Western Europe. The same biased perspective is portrayed, and people believe it. And people like to follow the majority. And this is something that is very dangerous, more dangerous than President Trump, and more of a threat to democracy when you have citizens who are so brainwashed and controlled that they cannot think for themselves. They follow everything their friend tells them, and everybody just forms this clique, and you believe the same thing without thinking for yourselves, because no one wants to stand alone. Dare to be a Daniel. Dare to stand alone. You don't want to stand alone because it's too lonely. And people will laugh at you. You're fearful of people deriding you because you're not thinking like them. You're reading and you are asking God for wisdom, for knowledge, and for understanding, and you can be able to articulate your sentiments much more stridently and much more succinctly and much more compellingly. You don't want to do it because it's easy to follow the crowd. But let me begin with some of the tips I would like to give to those of you who are in fear and who are desirous of avoiding Trump's deportation executive order. Now, number one, I would encourage all people who are undocumented, all my undocumented migrants in the United States, sign up if you can for a graduate degree program, for a master's program or a PhD program in an area that is needed, for example, nursing or in special education. In the United States, you have a plethora of students who are suffering from some form of special education, and they need or require special needs services. And Just go and sign up. You will definitely have a job. And Trump has said on his campaign trail, and one of the things you have to give him credit for, even though he will not accomplish everything, as I've said before, because he's a human being, but generally speaking, he generally says what he's going to do, and he does what he says, right? Or what he promised on the campaign trail. And one of the things that he promised on the campaign trail is that he is considering giving people with master's degree and PhD degrees their green card. Trump likes strong people. What the agenda is, what Trump's agenda is, and the agenda of the U.S. military-industrial complex, the U.S. empire, is to unrid itself of all weak people, people who are not able to make any contributions to the U.S. society. That is what he's going to do. So Trump is looking for and desires to retain educated and highly skilled immigrants. He values educated and highly skilled. In fact, the oligarchs in the United States prefer cheap foreign labor. There is no way at this given moment that America is going to raise significantly the salaries and wages of its domestic citizens, right? Or for its domestic citizens, I should say. Trump is thus using the bully pulpit of the American presidency to sack all undesirables from the US while retaining the strong, brave, law-abiding, educated, and highly skilled. That's what he's doing. This is a pull-push factor. The Democrats allowed the mass immigration of illegal immigrants, some of whom were criminals, into the country, which created social disorder and mayhem. A nation cannot survive if there is no order, even in the immigration process. You have to have some order. If not, things are going to get out of control. Number two, I'm advising all undocumented migrants to explore the diversity of U.S. visas. Do not rely on some of these predatory immigration lawyers who will only deceive you, offering you nothing of value to garner more money. There are a plethora of visas which you need to explore. If you are an entrepreneur, examine visa options. Yesterday, I learned from an immigration lawyer that a student on an F1 visa can self-sponsor. It means that you can sponsor yourself and eventually become a green card holder if he or she owns a business or is a part or belongs to a professional organization. And I was interested, I learned it yesterday by reading, an article that I saw in the Jamaica Observer. In fact, let me just give you a few other tips in terms of visas from that article that was written in the Jamaica Observer. It seems to me that it's gone now. Wow. Yeah, it seems that I did. Yeah, let me click back on it and see if sorry, in the United States. Clark said there was collateral damage when undocumented immigrants are separated from their blended families. He noted that in one U.S. Immigration and Customs enforcement operation, they went to a location to take an illegal immigrant with a criminal record and scraped up others. So they went for one, but they scraped up others. He advised that getting married to an American is not the only way to become a legal immigrant. He said the T visa could be applied for by people suffering from discrimination, while the U visa can be used for victims of crime who would have to furnish a police statement. Right? Look at this also. There's also the EB5 visa, the EB5 visa available for investors or those who have an existing business. So you could research if the existing business could be also your business online. You could have an online business, right? You could have your podcasts and your teaching online, whatever you're doing online, you can present it as an existing business and apply for the EB5 visa. Francis also noted that holders of the F1 student visa could self-sponsor themselves for green cards if they have awards for outstanding performance or are members of professional organizations. So if you have awards for outstanding performance, right? So let us say that you are doing, you're in your master's or PhD and you have outstanding academic performance and perhaps things that you have researched and published. that are critical to academia, then perhaps you can self-sponsor and you can eventually get your green card. These things I wasn't aware of, right? So we need to educate ourselves that we can understand and we can prevent ourselves from being enmeshed in a serious crisis. Number three, this is also another tip for those persons who are undocumented and even those who are also documented. May I just suggest here, those who are also documented, you need also to bear some of these tips or most of these tips in mind, even those who are also naturalized citizens. Because if you do not sound American, right, you do not know what will be in the minds of these people. Be careful. All right, be careful, because this is also the development of a surveillance state. This is not just only about immigration. This is the development of a surveillance state. Now, number three, always walk with a legal copy of your legal documents, right? So to prove your legal status in the country, remember, America is fast becoming a surveillance state. So be warned, prevention is better than cure. ICE will have no empathy or sympathy, and you might not be able to retain the services of a lawyer when you come in contact with an ICE officer. Word to the wise. Naturalized citizens as well need to be on the alert, especially if your accent is not American. Americans are not generally culturally sensitive people, and accents tend to be placed in one box. You are not American, they will say. So you have to have your documentations that you are, in fact, naturalized, or you are holder of a green card, or you are there working legally. Remember now, you must take all the necessary precautions, because if you're deported or if they scoop you up, you might not be able to retain the services of a lawyer. Number four, tip number four, refrain from giving, and all of this is coming from me, all right? All of this is what I have put together for you. Refrain from giving too much information to family members. Yes, some of them might not mean you well. Friends and colleagues, especially those on your job, as said people, could wind up betraying common trust. Some of your family members, you might not want to let them in on a lot of things that are happening to you. People's mouths are generally not their own, and people enjoy gossipy, juicy stories. They like listening to soap opera-like stories, all right? And even some of your friends, they might not wish you badly, they might mean you well, but they chat a lot. You have a lot of people who chat a lot, and you have to beware of the people who chat a lot. And even though they don't mean you well, they end up talking to people who don't mean you well, and then you end up in problem. All right? So don't have all of these friends, because many of the people that you think are friends are only your acquaintances. Number five, if I were you, the undocumented, or those who are also in the process of filing for their papers, because even though you might not be technically undocumented in the eyes of the law, but you might not yet have had your paperwork together. It might be in the process of being filed. And I think that you need to have those documents, copies of those documents on you, on your person, wherever you go, if you're stopped. And even when you go to your workplace, so that you can present the documents to them and say that you are in the process of filing. Right? It might change what could definitely happen. Now, if I were you, if you know that you are undocumented or is currently in the process of filing for legal documents to remain in the United States, begin to send some of your most important possessions back to your home country, or sell the things that you can and the things that can be sold, and save the money. You might need to set up a bank account in your home country so that you can transfer important funds. This is very important, because if you are deported and you leave your things behind, chances are that you might not be able to get your things back unless you have someone who watches your back. And they can go to the apartment and they can, fetch your things and send them home to you. But if I were you, I think that you need to do that. All right. Make sure you do that. Now, number 6, begin to conduct an exhaustive research on prospective job opportunities in home, all right, or at home and other foreign countries. Start engaging or re-engaging with some possible employers. Now, remember now that you have to always have a contingency plan. So things might not work out the way that you have planned for. And if it is in fact that you have to leave or you are deported on, well, that is not something you want, but if that happens, then at least when you return home, you would be in a process of getting a job, even though you're going to have to deal with that stigma. You know, that's another thing. How are you going to overcome the stigma of being a deportee? Now, number 7, while you are in the States, begin to think about some entrepreneurial adventures, such as working on social media as a podcaster or as a vlogger, possibly linking your work with some form of charitable organization. Again, Trump would like to retain immigrants who are not a strain on the public purse, right? That is what he wants to get rid of. He wants to get rid of criminals and people who are a strain on the public purse. But Trump, who loves money and who loves, businesses, he would want to retain people who are entrepreneurial like himself and who can help the economy of the United States to grow, who can strengthen the US's economy. Right? So you have to bear it in mind. He's not all that of a demon as they're making him out to be. Yes, there are things that I don't agree with what he's doing, but if you look carefully and also in an unbiased manner at what he's doing, you see that to some extent he has some amount of good in him. Other presidents probably would just go and deport everybody. They don't care. But he prefers to retain those people whom he thinks are going to strengthen the cause of the United States, whether educationally, or financially or socially, right? That is what he's looking for, all right? So we have to also be independent thinkers as far as Trump is concerned. Now, number 8, for all my undocumented illegal immigrants there, make sure you join up with a church organization or be a member of a spiritual community. Some of your church brethren and sistren might be able to help you through employment or providing legal counseling. No man is an island. No man stands alone. Remember now that community is very important, even though I've just told you that there are people that you also have to try to refrain from giving them your information, but you still also have to ask God for discernment for you to know the people with whom you can relate, you can communicate, and you can confide in whom you can confide to help you as much as you need help. Number 9, avoid at all costs going to places of entertainment or large public gathering. Being discreet should be your goal. Let me not talk about people who speak loudly and distastefully in public, spreading your business to everyone. Remember, wall has heirs. And I'm talking to these people who like to chat a lot on the bus and in public venues. And they'll talk loudly, yes, my dear, yes, Mrs. This person did that to me and I had to do that. And you're speaking loudly on the phone. Remember now that you do not know who is hearing you. In fact, even your phones a lot of times are tapped. So you've got to be careful. Number 10, having done all you can, observing strict adherence to the law, trust in God. Do not use the name of the Lord in vain. God cannot help those who are involved in illicit activities. And for this reason, I've just said to you, having done all that you can in strict adherence to the law, then trust in God. If it is his will that you should leave, then you leave. And leave with your dignity intact. Don't wait for them to come for you. If God impresses on your heart to leave, then leave with your dignity intact. Remember now, I told you all the things that you can do, sending your possessions back to your home country or wherever you deem it possible or necessary or appropriate or convenient, right? And then transfer, if at all possible, your funds back to the place to which you're heading so that you at least will have a foundation start to develop a new life. Now, we're living in some very dangerous times that we have to get ourselves acquainted and accustomed to moving around. We're not going to be in one location all the time because things are happening at they're happening rapidly, I should say. And you have to sometimes get up and move. Look at what happened in LA with the fires. Sometimes you just have to get up and run. And sometimes you have to get up and leave your most important things. So I would admonish you to read your Bibles also and develop a personal relationship with God so that he can give you the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding and the requisite fortitude that you will need as you go through this very dark moment of your life. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you like, share, and subscribe. Remember to like the videos. The videos can be shared with as many people on a platform. See you in another one. Adios.